This is a video about how to spot and find potentially profitable fiction titles amongst the sea of unprofitable fiction titles. Again, this is not a video about where to find fiction titles out there in the world, generally speaking, but when you go to a sourcing location, such as a thrift store, such as a library book sale, estate sale, are going to have a lot of fiction titles. And the majority of them, probably 90 to 95%, are not worth even pulling off the shelf and scanning or looking up. So how do you decipher between the 90% that you shouldn't bother with and the 5 to 10% that you should spend some time on? There are no concrete rules here, but over time I've found that there are certain things that jump out at me. And this is not only from my experience the last year plus of selling books on Amazon and sourcing or looking at thousands of books, but it also comes from my experience as a lifelong reader and having a sizable personal book collection. So I have thumbed through and pulled out and looked at tens of thousands of books over the decades. So if you're a lifelong reader, a recent reader, if you've read hundreds of books and looked through thousands of titles, then you're gonna have an idea of what I'm talking about. The first thing that jumps out at me is the quality of, because I'm looking at the spines, right? So, you know, I'm looking at the spines of the books, which says a lot about a book. Not only does it show the title and the author, but it shows the design of the cover, right? Or the colors and the design and the pattern and that sort of thing. And you can tell a lot by just looking at the spine and the design that they have. So the color scheme and how much quality is it? You can tell it's not only the design and the artwork and the color scheme, but it's also the quality of the cover. When I touch these, the books that I showed you, they have a different feel than a lot of the other titles that I saw. Because I went to a thrift store, which is where I bought these fiction titles, these 8 fiction titles out of the, I don't know, there must have been, 500 books or something there of fiction. So it's a combination of whatever the cover is made out of, whatever type of, not necessarily glossy, some of them are glossy, but it's not a rough texture, but it's a smooth, rough texture. It's hard to describe, but you can tell by just looking at it. If the material of the cover is high quality and the design stands out as somebody who really knew what they were doing, and it's clearly been done by a company that has made many, many books, many visually appealing books, then those are ones that you want to pull off. And those are the only ones that I really pull off, unless there's other indicators of a book worth scanning. Another one might be the title. It might be a unique title. It's just a succinct title. It's hard to say. It's sort of an intuitive thing. But some titles just sound cheesy and sort of lame, and other ones just, seem to stand out. So, for instance, this book Sold is ranked, extremely, I think, in the top 1,000. It sells a ton of copies. The design, it's all quality, right? The design is quality. You look at the spine, even though it's a simple word, sold, that stood out to me. The red against the yellow. The nice pattern here going on, this color of the last name. I mean, everything it stood out as a quality that this is clearly a book that's time was put into it, right? It's a book that sold a lot of copies, so it's not a rare book. I don't mean rare books. I just mean that the quality is done, sort of the craftsmanship is there, even if there hundreds of thousands or millions have been sold. There's a difference between this type of title and this type of design and something else you might find, another fiction title that just looks kind of cheesy and quickly put together. This is something that might take time to see for yourself, but I hope that you know what I'm talking about when you're out there looking at fiction titles. Sometimes you can see this with nonfiction as well, but fiction is where it's really important. Nonfiction, it's more about the title of the book than the look of it. But for fiction, I find that it's frequently these types of books that are worth pulling out. And lo and behold, the books that I pulled out to scan of all the fiction titles that I went through, majority of them I ended up buying, and I bought 8 of them, and I didn't scan that many. I mean, I scanned more than double that, but I don't know, 30, 40 titles maybe. So I pulled, not the majority, but it was a high percentage of the fiction titles that I scanned that I actually bought. Those are some of the things that I look for, the indicators of which fiction titles that you want to spend time on, because you don't want to go pulling off 100 fiction titles and end up getting 8 when you can pull out 35 or 40 and get 8 and save a lot of time and keep moving on to the next section. Now, maybe I missed a few, but at least I got these 8, and they're not, most of them are not going for great money. We're talking about around a $10 book that I can sell on Amazon. These are 50 cents a piece. When I list a book for $9.95, I get paid a little over $5. So I'm getting about, almost around $5. Yeah, it's like $5.60, $5.70 that I get paid. So I'm getting about $5 off of that 50 cents, which is 10 times my money, which is 1,000% return. And I'll take that any day. 8 of those, let's say $5 times 8, I think a few of these are worth more, but we're talking a decent amount of money for a little amount of time. This one, Biblio Mysteries, turned out to be worth the most of all the fiction titles, and this one stood out because of the name. I mean, the spine doesn't look particularly visually appealing, but Biblio Mysteries sounded different and unique, so that's why I pulled it off. So sometimes the artwork and the design doesn't stand out, but the title stands out a bit. And that's not like this is a bad looking spine. It's not the best, but it was okay. And then I thought, oh, Biblio Mysteries, that sounds like it could be something. And lo and behold, it's worth decent money. And this one I got for $1 because it's hardback. And this one, I think I recognize the Walter Mosley, but the spine looked kind of intriguing to me, the gray and red and the lettering. The photo of the woman here, so it looked like it could be worth something or worth looking up, and lo and behold, it was. In terms of the types of books, it's hard to say. There's some areas that might be worth looking into, but it kind of runs the gamut. I mean, I got mysteries here, and I have Sold, which is a brutal story. So some of them are highly acclaimed books, or books that are read by many, considered quality literature, and other stuff is not necessarily considered high quality literature, but books fall into different categories. It could be mystery, it could be a bestseller, it could be a lot of different things. This one really, I thought, was a great cover, great spine, great cover. Turns out that it was worth getting. You don't know with fiction, but you don't want to scan all of them. That's why you want to have some sort of sense of what to pull out and what not, so you don't waste too much time. I hope this helped a little bit. It's hard for me to put into words exactly what I see, but by and large, the big ones are the design, art, and craftsmanship of the cover. So the color scheme and the patterns and the lettering and the fonts and that sort of thing. The title itself, even something as simple as Sold or Father and Son, combined with the artwork. Sometimes the artwork and creativity will stand out more to me than the title, but if both stand out, then it's definitely worth it. Now, those are some ideas about fiction. Hopefully you can, next time you're out there, you can find the time to look at fiction titles. Most Amazon FBA booksellers say fiction is not worth your time, and overall it's not, but if you can slim down the time that it takes to scan through the books that are worth scanning through, then it's worth your time for sure. If you go to 10 sourcing places and you get 8 or 10 or 12 fiction titles per location, then it was definitely worth the time and effort. This lists a little bit more profit to add to your book selling. So get out there and find those fiction titles, and remember, keep booking.